Good morning, everyone. I have to readjust my brain. I'm normally behind the scenes around this time. So thank you for being here. It's a really nice time of the year right now. When Elisa and I were just driving to get here, there's a tree just down the road that has all these nice oranges and yellows and reds all mixed together. It's really beautiful. And just a few weeks ago, we saw a full rainbow, and we actually weren't together, but we both noticed it. We both looked up and we both saw it. And when Elisa was talking to me about it, she said it was the first time that she saw one like that. And where she's from in Massachusetts, she feels like she couldn't see it because there's a lot of hills and kind of up and down in the terrain. And I thought that was nice. I remember when she first visited my family in our hometown, both she and her siblings kept on saying how everything is so flat, you can see everything. And when I was hearing that, what I was hearing is everything is boring, everything is predictable, there's no variation here. But I think she's come to like living here in our heartland of America, and maybe as she spends more time here, she'll really come to love it. So the title of my sermon is God's Work and Our Work, and I hope in these next few minutes that we can come to feel that those two aren't so separate and that they're actually very close together and almost in a sense the same. So the reading I chose, True Father's words cut like a knife right there, but when I read it, I was thinking in the beginning that yeah, it's really strong, it's very clear, and then the reason I chose it was the last two sentences. So it starts with what the individual is responsible for. That's what we've been told a lot in this church. We don't focus on individual salvation. We focus on the individual creating family salvation. And in this instance, the individual has to live for the family for the tribe for the people, and so on. And when you read this, you think, okay, well, maybe some of you think this. Maybe it's just me. But, what about me? Who's living for me? Am I being neglected in this equation here? But as you read on in the last two sentences, then who does God live for? He lives for you. It says it right there, and you don't have to dig for it, you don't have to think about it, it's right there. God lives for us, God lives for you. Adieu. And if you ask me, I think we get the better part of the arrangement there. I'm not perfect. I generally sleep for several hours in a day or a night. I get hungry. Sometimes I'm not always happy or grateful. And that's what I have to offer to my family, to the people around me. But for God to take care of me, a God that isn't bound by time or space, a God that will love perfectly, that's what I receive. That's nourishing my base and my foundation. So I think that's a pretty good arrangement. It's not so bad to have to work and to put forth your best effort for your family and for your tribe and for your nation. So as I've been studying with my wife, actually True Mother's anthology series, which I would really recommend getting, it's actually a very smart thing to use it as a condition to connect to True Mother when she comes to speak. As we've been studying that and also coming to the Divine Principle studies here at church, I felt very refreshed, and I've felt kind of alive with that. And with the Divine Principle studies, it's very deep into the foundations of our faith and the essence of what we believe in and what your parents have taught us. And I thought, I don't want this to be just what we discuss here. I don't want it to be a conversation that we have and we close the door in this building and we move on and it doesn't stick with us, because then it's not taking its full value. It's not coming alive through our actions. And not just that, but not just staying in our heads, not just, I know the truth. Because the failures of history haven't been not knowing the truth, they've been applying the truth. So I've been thinking, how can I apply the teachings that I'm learning? And I've also been thinking about, where can I find purpose and fulfillment in my daily life? I think for myself, my full-time job is where I'm most spiritually disconnected. It is a corporate environment, so I have to really have intentional effort if I'm going to nourish myself or be nourished by the experiences that God gives me every day. So I've been thinking and trying to find that. And I can't tell you that I've reached a satisfying answer, but what I can say is, on reflecting on this, I know that the person that I choose to be is something that I can do. I can choose my attitude. So what I've decided is I'm going to choose to be the best person that I can be for myself, because I think that'll make me happy. And I think it'll also make my coworkers happy and the people around me happy. Someone who is serving, someone who is giving, honest and humble, all these things I want to strive for in myself. And hopefully that can change the environment and the people around me for the better. I think this kind of attitude, especially the one that true parents embody, it changes the people around you. And, people come and go in their careers. It'd be a pretty amazing thing to kind of almost leave a void when you leave, that you channel God so much that people notice when you're gone, that you left such an impact and such a mark on the people around you that when you're no longer there, they come to miss you, or they say, something doesn't seem right anymore. As soon as this person left, things started changing. It didn't feel as nice or as comfortable around here. So, in some ways, that's what I'm trying to do. And speaking of applying teachings and work, those two actually go very well together. That applying what we know about the divine principle and what we've learned from true parents, your workplace or the people you spend a lot of time with in your day is actually a very great place for that. So there was a person who I used to work with, and this person was really eccentric, and I felt like they made my work more difficult than it needed to be. Just a couple changes could have made a lot of things better. A lot of quirks, maybe some things that just made my skin crawl. And I just kept thinking, why is this person so strange? And why is it that we have to work closely together and not with someone else I'm more comfortable with? And I kept thinking it was this person and it's this person. It's kind of their fault or their responsibility, that they could be doing something better. And I kind of withheld what I really felt about this person. There was also a little bit of a language barrier between us. And so I felt, in a way, by withholding from them, I also withdrew a little bit. I wouldn't want to have full conversations with this person, and whatever I had in my mind, I would kind of put that on them, that this person is strange. Oh, look, they're doing something strange again, just like they always do. And I wasn't really being fair to this person. And it wasn't until we pretty much stopped working together and went separate ways that I realized this was an opportunity for me to grow. And I think I missed my chance this time, but I want to be more aware of it in the future, and I have a chance for that. And yeah, it was kind of on me. I mean, it was my responsibility to kind of change my attitude. And believe it or not, I don't feel like I've been around a lot of people who I don't want to spend time with, who I can't be around. This was one of the first times I had really had to spend a lot of time with someone who I had to work to have a better attitude towards, to be a better person for. And it's not going to be the last time, because that's how life is. And I feel more ready for the future when I'm going to have to be with someone who I have to stretch my heart to grow with, and not instead look on them for what can they change and wait on it and wait on it. If this person and I had been working together for years and years and years, I think I would be a less happy person if I didn't come to this realization. It really would have kind of been a strain on me. But I'm happy with the reflection I can kind of draw from this. So that's loving someone even when you don't like them, right? And I'm sure many of you are much more familiar with that than me. This is what I felt was like the first time I've really had to make a lot of effort for it. I haven't been best friends with everyone I've talked to or met, but I felt that I wouldn't want to run away from a conversation with them or avoid it if I could. So a few weeks ago, there was a Ukrainian fundraising team that stopped by here for a little bit, and they gave a really nice presentation one day after Sunday service, and I'm not going to just repeat it word for word, but I wanted to share what they talked about because I was really impressed by them. So this actually wasn't the first time that they were doing this. They've left their families and the places where they are multiple times, and we were also just one stop that they were going across in America. And at the very least for the team leader, he was blessed, and he had 2 or 3 young kids. I'm sure of the 4 brothers who were fundraising, at least a couple of them were blessed and probably had kids. And they were leaving for quite a bit, quite a good amount of time for their families back home. When I did fundraising, I did it for a year, and no one was really depending on me. I left behind my family, but they could be just fine without me. It wasn't so much of a difficulty. So I really appreciated their humility and their dedication to that. The kind of foundation in Ukraine is very different. The country has a different history than a lot of countries nearby it. And the team leader described it as having more of a communist origins and cultural history as opposed to a religious one. And that actually has a big effect on their own personal viewpoints, but also how they are trying to apply the principle and trying to work with true parents and fulfilling God's ideal. And so one thing about kind of that cultural upbringing and understanding is being very practical. We reject communism because of its completely external focus, its denial of the family, of individual freedoms and rights, and a close, loving relationship with God. But on the other side of it, it's also, there's practical aspects that have tied into their culture. And so that's what they try to use to their advantage. They're very serious about applying the principle. They say, we're communists, but, this is how we think. We want to apply. We want to be very direct with what we're doing. We don't want it to just be on paper. We want a faith that takes reality. And one way that they were looking to apply the principle, it was just such a little thing, but it was very intentional, very focused. And I thought it was very impressive. There was a drawing of a building that they're thinking of making in a church center, because right now a lot of church families live together. It could be 3 families in what is a space for normally 1 family, or 1 family and another guest. And so the kids love it. The kids are all playing together. The parents are kind of losing their hairs, trying to keep their head above water and raise their kids and make things work, and also keep their sanity at the same time. So this new church center that they're thinking of making, it has public open spaces for communal living, and then there are personal areas for families, for family traditions, for children and parents to be close together. And that's working with the whole purpose and the individual purpose. It's straight out of the divine principle, but they were thinking, what can we do that will really reflect God's nature in everything we do, in a building that we want to make? And they found it right there, and I thought it was very interesting that they did that, and I was really happy that I could hear all of this presentation that they were talking about. And when I was thinking about this, and I know that Ukraine is a former state of the Soviet Union, so there's that communist aspect that I mentioned in the culture, in the people, in the society. And so they have a very good kind of tradition or rotation of witnessing to people, taking them through introduction lectures and longer DP lectures, more seminars, more teaching, and they get progressively more in depth. And then eventually they have, at the end of their track, they have people getting matched and blessed and becoming fully members of this movement. And it's a very organized and good system. I think they have a lot that they can be proud of. And I was wondering, how do they witness to people in a culture that's communist? And I asked this question to the team leader, and he said, that's a good question. You can't just right away just jump out and start talking about God. You won't reach people in the same way. But there is a way that you can talk to them about that. The difference is that you start with talking to people on the street, and you ask them, how would you create an ideal family, or what does that look like? And how do you create world peace? What is it that we can do that will contribute to and help create world peace? And this is how you get people to talk to you, because these are universal things that people want. No one wants a bad family. No one wants continuous wars and around the world. And that's kind of like the opening place that that they can kind of reach people. And that's been their approach, and it's been very successful. And I think that's come from a place of a very good understanding of what you have to work with. Their circumstances aren't dictating their outcome. They're saying that our environment and our setting is going to be in the object position. We are going to be the subject. And we have our goal, we have our desires, and we're going to get there. And everything else is going to follow according to how we are going. And that kind of lesson and that kind of determination, I think, is very useful for us when we look at that. Because with difficulties that we have with changing culture and just everything that's around us that kind of resists God or resists an altruistic and virtuous life and a life with true parents and the teachings that they've brought to us. Here in the United States, we have a lot of protections, actually. We have the Bill of Rights and the First Amendment that protects our right to do what we're doing right now. We do have a religious foundation in this country, and these are strengths that help us. It's not a specific religion. It's probably closest to Christianity here in the United States. But God is everywhere. God is on the money we print. It's in the state motto of Ohio, with God all things are possible. It's in the state motto, I'm sure, of other states. And it's kind of everywhere. And, God is invited to be here. And we have to keep pushing to make sure that, God can be at the head of this nation in the future, and God can really dwell with our family here. But that's a little bit of a difference. And so, our efforts here and efforts in Ukraine might look different, but the important thing is that we understand what's around us, but we aren't controlled by it. And I think these members really understood that, and that's why they've been able to have so much success with what they were doing. Another thing that I really found remarkable about this team was that they never received outside support financially, as far as they knew, from anywhere else. And what that means is that everything that they have, the maybe 200-300 families or so, could be more, every kind of asset or resource or anything that they own has been through what they've tried to create. So there was a national messiah from Korea who came there and was the origin and the root and the foundation for everything. And from there, base membership grew. And everything that they had, they were creating from themselves. They weren't receiving support from elsewhere. And, you could come from a place of resentment with that very easily. That's very much being in Cain's position. But they took ownership of that. And the team leader said they felt very proud. We created this. We don't resent the fact that we didn't get help. We're proud of what we did because they have accomplishments and they own them. And they can feel that it belongs to them, that it's theirs, that their effort made a difference, and that it had substantial, tangible results. I think that that really makes them happy. So again, our circumstances and our environment don't always have to tell us what needs to happen and what will happen. I would say for sure true parents are the greatest example of that. True father marching into North Korea as the border was closing. That environment is probably one of the most hostile places you could be. And he was going into it instead of going away from it like most people were. And I mean, if you're not going with God's mission, I don't know why you would be marching to North Korea if you didn't have God by your side when the border was closing and when things were looking really, really scary, just to be alive and to try and survive. And so what I just want to kind of leave as a closing point is everything that we're trying to do, it makes a lot more sense and it becomes a lot more doable and real when our family is behind us. When I was preparing for the matching process and I was trying to be the best candidate I could be, but also be an honest and humble person and especially vulnerable with whoever I'd be talking with, I really wanted to be close to my family, to know that there was a close relationship between parent and child, that, not that just we were good, but that we understood each other and that we could really communicate with each other. Because I knew that when I would get matched and blessed, that I wasn't going to no longer need my parents and my family. I'd probably need them more. And when I was going to be matched and blessed, I knew I wanted to be, I wanted it to be an addition to my family. I wanted my wife and I to be close to her family and to be close to my family, and our family would grow, and that we would all be together. And so I wanted that to kind of be the opportunity for me to continue on in the future with my life and having spiritual children. And making an impact in my life and living a life worth living. I think one thing I forgot to mention earlier was one more thing about my work is that it can be very routine, and so you can forget what the days are and actually how to distinguish them if there's not something different that happens to you. And so I've been thinking one more thing I want for myself is just to notice one thing every day that helps me remind me what happened today. Because a routine becomes blurred the more you do it, and your days start to get, they start to stop distinguishing themselves and stop being unique. And one day when I was walking on a break at work, I have been doing this for a year. I've had my job for a little over a year now. And I go for a walk twice a day just to go outside and get away from my desk. And I really love it. I am grateful that I can do it. I passed by a tree that I'm sure I passed by maybe 100 or so times before, and this time I actually looked up at it, and I could actually reach it, and I could touch it, and these leaves were bigger than I ever saw before. I didn't realize that such a big leaf could come from a tree in the United States. And then I thought that, this leaf kind of looks interesting, and I touched it, and it kind of had a felt kind of texture, almost like a clothing. And I just thought, I've been walking by all these days, but I never stopped and noticed this. And that was just something simple that helped me remember how that day was kind of special and unique to me. And to me, when you can have one moment like that, maybe even less significant than that kind of adds meaning or value to your day, and you can do that for every day of your life, I think that's a life well lived, and that's the life that I'm trying to reach for and strive for. So when I was talking about matching and blessing and my family roots and foundation, the point I wanted to make is have a strong foundation with whatever you're trying to do in your life, because especially with your spiritual life, if your spirit is a plant that you're growing now and your body is the vessel that allows that, it becomes difficult if a pot holding a plant has holes in it, and so when you water, the water leaks out and escapes. And that's when you don't have a foundation and you're trying to do things that are beyond your capability, because you can't stand on solid ground. So I would just like to close with saying that your family is important, that applying the teachings of everything that you know, it really does apply with your family. It's not just the workplace or just in your head or what you want to do in the future, but your family is a very important place to really give love, to experience God's heart. It's the school of love. So that's what I wanted to conclude with. I wanted to thank you all for your time, and I'll close with a prayer. Good morning, dearest loving Heavenly Mother and Heavenly Father. What we realize and see right in front of our eyes and our faces so clearly is the beauty of your creation. Every day we wake up to a very warm sun and solid ground to stand on, and we experience the seasons just like we do right now, where your creation speaks to us and is really just showering us with beauty, and it truly takes its value when we notice it and when we stop to appreciate it. There are trees out right now that just truly speak of your love when we see them and when we appreciate them. By receiving what they project onto us, we make them alive and we give them value. And I pray that we can notice how you work in our lives and every opportunity that you give us, so that they don't pass by and that we don't look back on them and realize what we could have much sooner. True parents have been with us for so long, but they can't be with us here on earth forever. And I hope that we can know that and appreciate every moment and opportunity that we have with them, that their requests for us and their desires for us aren't burdens, but are opportunities and challenges to help us grow, and that they are unique things that help us live an adventurous life, that it's not just taking care of ourselves, but it's an adventure, and it's an exploration of what is the world going to look like as we make it better and as we come closer to you. We are so grateful to you, God. We are so grateful that we have true parents who have been true examples of love and reflecting your desires for this earth and for the future of humanity. I pray that we can receive you in each day of our lives, that we can know where you are in our day, and that we can see you and feel you and hear you. We thank you, God. We love you. And I offer and report these things in our names, we pray. Nathan Bratcher and Elisa De Silva, a blessed central couple. Adieu.